A Nuzlocke is a Pokémon challenge in which you're only allowed to catch one Pokémon on every route, and if your Pokémon faints, it's considered dead. In this Nuzlocke, instead of catching a Pokémon on every route in the game, I'm going to be catching one Pokémon every time I enter a new country in the real world using Pokémon Go. Why am I doing this? Well, I love Pokémon and I love to travel, so why not combine the two? We'll be doing this adventure in Pokémon Scarlet version, and we start by providing my government name and selecting which picture of a 10-year-old child looks most like me. If you're wondering why I chose Pokémon Scarlet for this adventure, well, it's still the most recent main series Pokémon game. But more importantly, if a valued member of our team dies, it's the game that's most likely to crash and give us a second chance. I do really like the introduction to this game. The first time I played this game, I entered free of spoilers, and I spotted Flamigo in the introduction and immediately made it my priority to find one and add it to my team. While we watch this, let's lay out some ground rules. I'll be opening up Pokémon Go and catching one Pokémon at a location of my choice every time I enter a new country. I'm not going to do it immediately upon arrival because I'd rather catch a Pokémon at a notable landmark rather than an airport arrivals hall. We're also going to avoid community days or other such events where one particular species is spawning pretty much in isolation, as that would be boring. I may bend that rule if we have a short layover somewhere, but we'll see how we go. Once the introduction is done, my first course of action is to speed up the text and turn off the autosave feature, like any sane Pokemon player. I then head downstairs where my mother instructs me to answer the door because a stranger is coming. Excellent parenting that is. So I head to the door, and my possible kidnapping, and some guy I've never met just enters my house like he owns the place. Seriously, what is with the adults in this game? I'm introduced to the starter Pokemon of this game, and then my mother gives her 10-year-old child a smartphone. Pretty sure my real mother didn't give me a smartphone until I was like 17 or something, but hey, this must be what it feels like to be a Gen Z baby, or whatever gen comes after that. Gen Z-A? Is that a thing? I then gouge my eyes out while walking at snail pace until my character randomly learns how to run halfway down the route, until I finally reach the house at the end and have to make my starter Pokemon selection. I don't know why I'm being offered these very Iberian looking Pokemon. I'm from Australia, so my starter Pokemon should be a choice between a grass kangaroo, a fiery platypus, and this water type Pokemon. But in any case, I obviously choose the cutest Pokemon on offer and nickname it Fuego. For the record, Fuecoco has got a docile nature, which is not awful. Now that we have Fuecoco, it's time to get our real starter Pokemon. Now, I could just fire up Pokemon Go at home to catch a Pokemon, but where's the fun in that? Instead, I travelled out to the Sydney Opera House with a view of probably the most recognisable landmark in my home country, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I would have liked to have recorded my reaction to this, but there was a very loud concert going on inside the Opera House, so that really wasn't an option. I also did the encounter on my tablet so that I could use my phone to record my surroundings. I don't know if anyone in all of human history has ever played Pokemon Go on a tablet before, but it's probably the most obnoxious thing I've ever done in my life. In any case, our encounter was a slack-off, and my reaction was, Houston, we have a problem. If you're wondering how I didn't click on the Pidgeotto, well, I did, but the Pidgey line is not available in Scarlet and Violet, so it doesn't count. In all honesty, I clicked on the Pidgeotto and the Pokestop about 12 times before checking the screen, realizing that there was a Slakoth and a Greavard hidden behind them, and trying again. I would have loved to get Greavard, as ghost types would be immune to the plethora of normal type attacks in the early game, but sadly it wasn't meant to be. Now, if you don't know why I wasn't excited to get Slakoth, Slakoth and its final evolution Slacking have the Truant ability, which means they can only attack on every other turn. Slacking may be able to work around this with its huge base stat total, but Slakoth does not have a huge base stat total, which is going to put us at a major disadvantage in some of the early battles. Back to Scarlet, where my mother entrusts this random girl I just met to take me to school, and gives me a sandwich for my trip around the world. Yes, that's right, one sandwich. Another piece of brilliant parenting there. we're now at the point of the game where I could transfer Slackoth in from Pokemon Home, but Slackoth came through at level 19 and it would not obey me if I added it. As such, I decided to breed a level 1 Slackoth in another save file and trade the egg into this game to circumvent this issue. This shouldn't be a problem once we get past the first couple of gyms or so, but we'll address it on a case-by-case basis. However, trading isn't available until we reach the Pokemon Center in Los Platos, so we're stuck with Fuecoco for now. As the game continues, Nemona teaches us how to catch a Pokemon, and then I fall off a cliff but survive the fall thanks to the Parachute app on my smartphone. There really is an app for everything, isn't there? I'm then forced to feed this dying Pokemon the one piece of food my mother so generously gave me before I left, effectively sealing my fate. Fortunately, this large Pokemon helps me get through this cave, walking incredibly slowly in the process, and then we reach a lighthouse where a very angry teenager attacks me with a very intimidating squirrel. Once I am done setting the squirrel on fire, I am given Koraidon's Pokeball and get my first glimpse of my new school. It looks kind of like a big church I saw in Barcelona 7 years ago, but that's probably just a coincidence. Once I reach Los Platos, I can finally trade in the Slackoth egg and add it to my team, nicknaming it Startkoth because it's my starter and I'm great at nicknames. I think this is also a good time to get our second team member, which means it's time to leave Australia. Now, the first thing I do when I board a plane is check to make sure they have Harry Potter on the entertainment system, because that'll sort out the next 16 hours of my life, depending on the length of the flight. We then take off, bound for the city of Guangzhou in southern China. I was in Guangzhou for a layover, and they offer transiting passengers a free transit tour of the city as long as your layover coincides with the times of the tour. They offer this sort of thing in a number of cities around the world. I did one in Seoul, South Korea a couple years back, and it's an excellent way to see a new city as well as killing time on a layover. On the Guangzhou tour, they take you to Huacheng Square, from which you can see the Canton Tower, the second tallest tower in China, and one of the 10 tallest in the world. Around the square, you can also see some other massive buildings and the Guangzhou Opera House, which is slightly less iconic than Sydney's in my unbiased opinion. They then take you to the Chen Clan Academy, where you can see a beautiful piece of traditional Chinese architecture, and you also go and see the statue of 5 goats in Yushu Park. Guangzhou is sometimes referred to as the City of 5 Goats, which ties back to an old legend. But the best part of the tour is a free lunch which is included at the end, before you return to the airport. Would you rather be sitting at an airport or jumping on a free tour with a free meal? No-brainer if you ask me. My travel tip to you is to see if any city you are planning to fly through offers this sort of thing. And my apologies for all the Cantonese words I undoubtedly just butchered. Now, the only issue with China was that Pokemon Go doesn't seem to want to work there, because of our good friend Xi Jinping. I read conflicting information on the internet on what to expect here, and some information suggested that I'd be able to open the app, but wouldn't be able to play much. But I found that I couldn't even open the app at all. Luckily, I had saved some research tasks from the Go Wild area event, which was my backup plan for getting an encounter in China. I do miss the good old days when you could customize the name of your rival in Pokemon games, because so far, Xi Jinping is shaping up to be our biggest rival on this adventure. Once I arrived in Thailand, my destination for this trip, I opened up my research tasks and selected one at random to get my Chinese encounter, and it turned out to be Mareanie. I haven't used Mareanie in a playthrough before, so I am excited to have this, and it should be relatively useful against many of the early game major battles. For the record, the other 2 research tasks I had saved would have given me Paldean Wooper and Poliwag. I'm not sure which one I would have preferred, considering my only other team member is currently a normal type, but time will tell. I don't really have a great idea for a nickname for Mareanie, so let me know your ideas in the comments below. With Slackoth and Mareanie in tow, I caught some wild Pokemon in the game to gain some experience before running into Xi Jinping at the Mesa Goza gate. Xi Jinping declined my offer of world peace and decided to start a war with me, which seems totally out of character. I was really nervous about this battle because they use a terastallized Pawmi, and I have a water-type Pokemon and a Pokemon that can only attack every other turn. At this early stage of the game, I'm heavily restricted in terms of TMs, items, and strategic options. My options here were either over-leveling, which would make the next part of the game rather boring, or bringing Fuecoco back into the mix to give me a better chance. Mareanie takes care of Sprigatito, and I switched into Slackoth with the intention of using Yawn and taking a couple of hits before doing some damage. Xi Jinping talks about using an ace in the hole here, and I sincerely hope they're not referring to nuclear weapons because I'm literally 10. This ended up being really risky because one unfortunate critical hit could have killed Slackoth, but it survived long enough to land one scratch, and we got lucky enough to land the critical hit ourselves, doing big damage. Now I'm thinking Mareanie can mop up the rest if Pawmi stays asleep, but of course Pawmi wakes up straight away, and Mareanie somehow holds on for dear life with 3 HP. However, it forces me to switch to Fuecoco to finish off the battle. All 3 of my Pokemon could have died in this battle with one critical hit here or there, but hey, we made it. I don't know if I should continue to use Fuecoco moving forward, since we didn't catch it in the real world, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Should it be part of the team moving forward, or should it be benched? For the record, the other Pokemon you're seeing in my party are just Pokemon that I've been catching along the way to gain experience. These Pokemon are not eligible to be used in battle at any point. After the battle, Xi Jinping shows me around Barcelona, or whatever this place is called, and acts surprised that I like food. Clearly Xi Jinping's surveillance systems must have been down that day I was in Guangzhou, otherwise they'd know how much I love my food, especially when it's free. Next up, we meet Team Star, which doesn't quite sound as menacing as Team Galactic or Team Plasma, but let's see where this goes. Xi Jinping shows up halfway through my demolition of these grunts and hands me the nuclear weapons they were using earlier. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this thing because my Mareanie's Terra type is water and this thing seems to have moves of every type but water, so I beat the grunts the good old-fashioned way. After all that commotion, I finally reach school, where I'm confronted by the man who broke into my house. The home invader then gives me a lesson in etiquette, which is quite ironic since he literally broke into my house 15 minutes ago. And then I can finally go to class, where I am asked what I'm doing here. Apparently the game developers forgot to add "I'm travelling around the world catching one Pokemon in every country" as an option, so that's a little disappointing. I chat with Arvin, who wants to go on some sort of life-changing quest together, even though we met 12 minutes ago, before my phone is hacked by someone named Cassiopeia, who somehow knows I confronted Team Star 3 minutes ago. Considering the only people who were there were the Eevee girl, the Team Star grunts, and Xi Jinping, I wonder who this Cassiopeia person could be. My money's on Xi Jinping. China does that sort of thing, hacking phones, don't they? The home invader then offers me more behaviour corrections, because apparently the only thing this school teaches is hypocrisy. Let's fast forward through the rest. Xi Jinping wants me to battle gyms or something. This woman on the TV knows my student ID number, which Xi Jinping probably hacked off my smartphone. And then all the teachers in this school decide to stop teaching us and let us go do whatever we want. Arvin and Xi Jinping try to convince me to follow them, and then the Cassiopeia person calls me while Xi Jinping is standing right in front of me. So now they have an alibi. My list of suspects is officially down to 1. Alright, our first stop is Cortondo and the Bug-type gym, since we're going to follow these major battles in the recommended order, more or less. After some training along the way, I'm going into the battle pretty confident. I picked up the Aerial Ace TM by defeating trainers along the way, and teach the move to Slackoth. At level 14, Slackoth also learns Headbutt, which has 70 base power, quite impressive at this stage of the game, especially if we terastallize. Marini also has Peck, which will land super effective damage, and it also resists Bug, which could come in very handy. Before we can battle Katie, we have to participate in the Olive Roll. I have no idea why this hasn't been added to the Olympics yet. I mean, skateboarding is an Olympic sport now, so this really isn't that much of a stretch. Unfortunately, I'm brought back down to reality by the gym trainer's cricketoon when I find out how little damage Slackoth does with Aerial Ace. This battle might not be as easy as I anticipated. Once I put the olive into the bottom corner like an elite Spanish footballer, it is time to battle Katie. I lead with Marini because Katie's Nimble has a fighting type move which Slackoth wouldn't appreciate. Unfortunately, without leveling past the level of Katie's Pokemon, Marini's Peck is a 3-hit KO on Nimble, but Nimble can't do too much damage to us. Tarantula is up next, which is also a 3-hit KO, but it does whittle away more of Marini's health than Nimble did in the process. As with every other battle I've ever done in my life, I land a useless critical hit when it's already gonna die, then switch out to Slackoth to take on Teddiursa. My plan is to hit it with Yawn, take a couple of hits, and then fire off a terastallized Headbutt. Unfortunately, Slackoth can't take a couple of hits, so we have to switch back to Marini to absorb the damage of the second Fury Cutter. I go for Venoshock, thinking the stab will make it more powerful than Peck, but I realise Peck seems to do just a little more. Thankfully, Teddiursa cooperates by staying asleep until we can peck it to death. And finally it's time to get my first gym badge. Oh wait, now it's time, no, one more, okay, now, no, okay, badge please. Oh wait, okay, that's got to evolve first too. Okay, now I can get my gym badge. And that's a wrap on the first episode of my Global Nuzlocke. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you'd like to follow the rest of the adventure. I'll be aiming to post an episode once a month, give or take. Until then, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in Thailand, a country where Pokemon Go actually works, where I'll show you around the country and we will take on our first Titan Pokemon and our next gym.